Today's Mussar class is going to be on truth. And this Mussar class in my study kind of threw a curve on me, okay? Because I really wasn't expecting what the sages were going to say about this concept. What is the Hebrew word for truth? Emet. So truth, emet. In Song of Songs, Rabbah 1:9, it says, in the Midrash, it says, the seal of God is truth. The seal of God is truth. Now, I'm going to throw this out to you because when we think of truth, what right off the bat comes to mind? Just there's no right or wrong answer. When you hear me say Mussar class today is about truth, what are you thinking?
Honesty.
Honesty? Yeah. What else? Torah is truth, being a truthful person, right? Seeking truth, loving truth, all of those are absolutely true.
There are absolute truths.
And there are absolute truths. But when it comes to Mussar, Mussar is about what? An internal quality of character, right? So when we think of in lines of internal quality of character, then we must think, okay, then that must require me to be a truthful person, right? To be a person of truth. But the question that's going to be presented tonight comes from the house of Shammai and Hillel, which are in some levels of opposition to each other. And I'm going to break it down a little piece at a time, and we're going to examine this, and then at the end we're going to have a discussion as to the kind of truth that we should be examining. As in many things in Judaism, when I finish this class, you're not going to have the answer. Okay? You're just going to know that we're going to have to spend the rest of our... No, I'm serious. No, because that's what happened to me. At the end, I'm thinking, okay, well, really, this left this wide open because at some level, we have to wrestle with this. We have to wrestle with this concept. Now, as far back as 200 to 500 CE, we find references in Jewish folklore about a golem. Have you heard of a golem? Right? Now, what was a golem? Do you remember what a golem was?
A stone or clay creature that was brought to life.
Correct. And it would be brought to life usually through some type of incantation. Now, one of the most famous golems is said to have been created in the 16th century by Yehuda Loew, the Maharal of Prague. He assembled a clay body, and it was made out of water and clay and fire, and he said it was laying prone, and finally he inscribed one word on it, emet, truth, and such is the life-giving power of truth, and this thing came to life. Now, whether this is an allegory, whether it's true, it's immaterial, because where we're going to go, you're going to understand, oh, now I get it. So do we create golems. Okay, watch. Someone asked if you're free one evening this week. You aren't busy at all, but you really don't want to spend time with them. So you make up a commitment and beg off. Like, man, I've got something going on with my wife. My wife's my famous excuse.
No.
Oh, don't even start. But you understand what I'm saying, right? You badly want the contract or a job. Let's say you're bidding for a job or a contract. You're trying to get a pay raise, and you just flatter yourself right into the job. You say all kinds of wonderful things. As a matter of fact, they said today, lying on resumes is like one of the biggest things now. People just embellish their resumes. They may have always been doing that, but the problem is with the internet, you're not going to get away with it because HR is just going to get on the internet and look you up and find out if you're bloviated or not. You aren't confident that you will pass an exam, so as a student, you sit next to the smart guy or gal to cheat off them, right? Follow me. Do you have any examples of little manipulations of truth like these in your own life? None of us want to admit it, but we all have these examples. If you act carefully and no one catches on, they don't really even have any negative consequences, correct? So, for example, somebody says, hey, let's go do so-and-so, instead of saying, I can't right now, or I don't want to, I prefer to be going home and relaxing, which there's nothing wrong with saying that. In this group, everybody would understand that. But I'm just saying in another situation. Does it really have any negative consequence? Well, we're going to talk about these. But these sorts of behaviors are important to those on the Mussar path. Why is it important? Because we want to be people of emet. We want to be people of truth. We don't want to sling out a lie just because it's convenient to us. Peel back the behavior, and we need to ask ourselves what motivates us to sometimes not tell the truth. Is there a time in which truth should not be spoken? That's something we've discussed, correct? We peel back the behavior, and you're almost sure to discover that the source of the lies is one thing. Why do most of us lie in life? Fear. Save face, yeah, fear. Now, it's not like fear like, oh, I'm scared, but you don't want to look bad. Or you're scared that what you say is going to hurt or damage another person, right? We lie out of fear of facing someone else's disappointment, or disappointing ourselves, or fear of shame and loss and any other number of responsibilities. Let's talk about Hillel and Shammai. Mussar focus is not on truth. Now, this is where the twister comes. The lesson on truth in Mussar is not on truth, as if it were something hard, objective, and external. Rather, the Jewish tradition understands that truth is situational, and we ourselves are part of the situation. Now, when I say that truth is situational, I'm not talking about situational ethics. Do you understand? Because there's a whole thing in society today that says there are no ultimate truth. It just depends on the situation. We know there is ultimate truth, right? And situations don't dictate whether something is true or not based on the situation. However, the Jewish thinking is that truth depends on the situation. Not whether it is true, but whether I should be completely truthful or not. You follow? Now let's go on. Let's jump right in with a tricky example. And I can imagine that you've been in a situation much like this one before, where your ideas, your good character traits, etc., is a high and emet, and all of a sudden it comes head on, boom, with a situation. It's a mitzvah, for example, to tell a bride and groom at a wedding. And one specific way is to give praise to the bride. Tell her she's beautiful, she's gracious, etc. But what happens if she has a lazy eye and a gimped leg and a big mole between her eyes? Aha, see? Now listen, here are the two issues. The issue is the focus of an argument between the two major scholars who show up repeatedly in the Talmud. One sage, Shammai, takes a position that the bride should be praised according to the positive qualities that she personally possesses. In other words, if you were supposed to look into, you're supposed to look until you succeed in finding something, right? I mean, really look beyond the lazy eye and the gimped up leg and the mole between the eyes and find something like, you know what, you're so kind to your husband. You're going to be a wonderful woman. You're a person of integrity, etc. You look for those qualities. Shammai's adversary, Hillel, presents a different opinion. He states that all brides should be praised as being beautiful and gracious, whether they look this way or not, because what makes them beautiful and gracious is the fact that they have found a husband and they come together, and it is a beautiful thing. It is something God has created. To that, Shammai retorts, what if a bride limps and is blind? Should one praise her as being beautiful and gracious? Is this a lie? Has not the Torah told us, keep your distance from falsehood? Exodus 23, verse 7. Shammai has made a good point, invoking a very clear principle stated that the Torah, we don't lie. Do not lie. Hillel doesn't meet Shammai's head over the quote for the Torah. Instead, he responds with an analogy. When a person buys an inferior article in a market, should one praise it in his presence, or should one find fault with it in his presence? It appears that one should praise it. That's Hillel. This analogy isn't one I personally try to defend, equating the bride to merchandise, okay, because she's not. But let's try to get around this in the essence of what Hillel's saying about truth. Hillel tells us that our primary concern ought to not be for the truth per se, but for the impact of the statement. Now we get where we're going. This is the heart of Mussar truth. It's not so much do we speak the truth, but what is the impact of the statement of my truth? Why is that important to us? Because the rest of the elements of Mussar talks about mercy, talks about kindness and generosity. You see what I'm saying? And you go through, then you've negated all the other Mussar parts if you speak the truth and you damage another person.
The time talks about that a lot.
So what's that?
The Haffatime?
Exactly.
A lot.
Exactly. And I'm going to bring up a quote that really had a major impact on me. It says that falsehood has no legs. We've heard that before in some places. So where does this leave us? Are we supposed to view the truth in speech as an absolute, as Shemaim seems to recommend, or are there circumstances where it is justified? Or maybe even better, is it a mitzvah not to tell the truth, such as when the goal is to serve a higher purpose? And I think pretty much we've all, in our classes with Rav Wolbe, etc., have learned that to not speak the truth is much better if the end purpose doesn't, if you're avoiding damaging another person. Yes?
It's like, for example, when I reviewed Breaking Sword, asks you where to find someone saying that they want to kill him, and you have that person staying at your house. Do you tell him?
Absolutely not. Exactly. You're right. Thank God that there were a lot of conscientious, righteous of the nations that lied like you wouldn't believe to save Jews during the Holocaust. So there is a virtue to not telling the truth. And I think that that's where the oddity of this whole thing, that this is what's so beautiful about Judaism, is that we understand that we have to seek truth. We want to be people of truth. We want to know the truth, but there are moments in which it's not appropriate to speak the truth. Yes?
And so, the quote that says, stay away from falseness, it doesn't necessarily mean being a liar. It means being false, deceiving people.
Absolutely. That is a very good point. So for the viewer, the idea is to stay away from falseness, false things. And it's not so much that we avoid not telling the truth. It's just not to be deceptive in our conversation. Now, let's look on only the moment of reflection, only a moment of reflection. It becomes clear that most lies are told to protect oneself or hurt someone else. Or these sorts of falsehoods can never be excused. You understand? So this is what we're talking about. This is what the difference between falsehood and truth. If you speak in a way to lie, to deceive, or to hurt someone, then that is absolutely something that we avoid, and that is not truthfulness. Falsehood can never be excused, meaning deceptive. I am not meaning to deceive for deception purposes. If I say something that is not necessarily true, then I'm doing it to protect the person that I'm communicating to. One thing that we understand is that twisting truth in a self-serving way erodes the foundation of the world. Politicians, my favorite subject. It seems like that they have no problem standing up and making promises that they know they will never fulfill. This is not truth. This is not emet. This is falsehood. They blatantly say something knowing they're not going to do anything about it.
You know they're not.
And you know they're not going to do it. Right. And the thing is, you can call them on it, and they don't really care because it's just the way you do politics. Lying like this also undermines the soul. This is the part that we have to remember. That a person who truly and carefully examines their heart and their soul They don't want to be a liar because it does undermine the soul. It says, as the Talmud says in Sotah 42a, it says a habitual liar is unable to perceive the divine presence of Hashem. Someone who lies all the time is not going to be able to perceive Hashem, the divine presence. And I would even take it as far as one who lies and is deceptive is not going to be able to absorb and receive Torah. There's just no way. There is a saying in Hebrew that translates as falsehood has no legs, as I'd mentioned before. This could either mean that falsehood has no legs to stand on, meaning no basis of a foundation. It's just no foundation, not set up on anything real. Or it could mean that falsehood has no legs to run with, i.e., it couldn't endure over time. You know, it says your sins will find you out. Sooner or later, you can only lie so much. There's a scene from a show that came out a few years ago called Breaking Bad. And the guy in the thing, the main character, told so many lies to his wife that he's laying there, he's coughing up blood because of lung cancer, and he says, I've told so many lies, I can't keep track of them all. Is that true? It is absolutely the truth. Have you ever known somebody that would lie even when it was more convenient to tell the truth? Is that not the strangest thing? Like you and I both know that they're lying, and they just lie over stupid stuff. It's not even significant things, right? So what happens is what they don't realize is they've lied so much that their soul is permanently stained, and they have no capacity to tell the truth. It's just not even in their repertoire. This comment about falsehood plays into a fact that all the letters of the Hebrew word falsehood, sheker, which is, I found this interesting, have only one foot, in contrast to the letters of emet, truth, which stands firmly on 2 feet. Further, all the 3 letters which spell sheker are positioned next to each other in the Hebrew alphabet, one place, where emet is in the front, middle, and back, almost as if 3 solid legs that holds up all of the Torah and all of the Aleph Bet, which means that truth itself has a strong foundation. Now, there is a slippery slope. The simple conclusion is that lying damages the world both outer and inner. It damages us. Nevertheless, life is complex, and there are surely circumstances where our truth is not the right thing to speak. I've used this about ugly babies, and we all kind of laugh. But no one will tell a brand new mommy that her baby looks like an alien or a goat or Winston Churchill, right? I've actually seen some babies that look like that. Who was that the other day on Facebook said that their baby looked like?
A little girl in our class, my mom said that she looks like a goat.
Yeah. But that was the mom saying that about her own daughter, nobody else. So I looked at her, she looked like Pope Francis. I'm like, wow, okay, that's interesting. So the whole point is there are circumstances which you shouldn't speak the truth. So what standard are we to adopt? Truth is unreliable and can even be harmful. Say it again. Truth is unreliable and can be harmful. On the other hand, falsehood is dangerous and so often damaging. And relativism is a slippery slope. So you see the delicate balance here? You have one that says truth can be unreliable, meaning you don't know what the consequences. When you say it, it goes out your mouth. Yes, you're being truthful, but my Lord, the damage that could be caused by that. How many times have we known of parents who verbally abuse their children with truth? Right? It's just not appropriate. So, because Mussar encouraged us to interact with growth curriculum from our life experience, our job here is not to resolve the philosophical quandary. Okay? We're not here to resolve the fact that, we should always be truthful or we should fudge the truth, etc., but that we should wrestle with the whole idea. Here's what I see. Shemaim would have us use our personal perceptions as a guide to truth, while Hillel says that we need to challenge ourselves to see truth not only through our own eyes, but through the eyes of others while tied to the situation. Surely every groom considers his bride to be beautiful and gracious. Hillel advises us to review the matter patiently until we can enter into a perspective of the groom through which we will also come to see the bride in her beautiful graciousness. Typically, we only see things from our own singular perspective. Hillel's position encourages us to stretch ourselves to see things through the eyes of others. Emet. It is the capacity to not only speak the truth, but even more important, prior to see it. And since truth is often multiple, so must our perspectives be. So when you look over into the carriage and you see the child that looks like an alien, you say, what a sweet, innocent child. Because all children are sweet and innocent. And that is something we should do. And so what should be the mantra of this? It's for the sake of peace. Now you mentioned Chafetz Chaim. The same, you Terry? The same lesson is taught in a different way by the Chafetz Chaim, a 20th century rabbi, sage. His principal contribution to Jewish life was his codification of the laws concerning proper speech. Shmirat Hasharan Halashan, literally guarding the tongue. It is so important to guard one's tongue that Rabbi Israel Salander founded the Mussar movement, once said, quote, "It is worthwhile for a person to study Mussar his entire life if it will save him from speaking Lashon Hara one time." Lashon Hara is horrible. In his ruling, the Chafetz Chaim did not set truth as the highest standard for speech. I find this interesting. Just because something is true does not give us a license to say it. Because saying things that are true can still be enormous harm, can do enormous harm. And it is the potential for that harm that the Chafetz Chaim designated as the ultimate guideline for directing speech. This principle lies behind the Talmud's judgment that it is permitted to deviate from, quote, the truth on account of peace. Yavamot 65b. This means that one may speak something other than the truth for the sake of peace or ethical imperatives such as humility, modesty, and sensitivity. Truth is a very high virtue, but it sometimes comes in second to higher virtues, right? Depending on the situation. Now, we're not talking about situational ethics. We're not talking about situation which it convenience you to speak. I shouldn't speak the truth because I'm going to be embarrassed. Because at that point, then we're talking about doing it for self-centered motivations. We should speak the truth when it comes to our own life because we can deal with our own pain. As we find commonly in Jewish law, the impact our actions have on other people is often weighed more heavily than an abstract principle. The impact of our lifestyle on others is the demonstration of Kodashim, holiness, toward God. You see, I can't show God my holiness if I don't do it to my brother and sister, right? I cannot show God how grateful I am if I don't show gratefulness and generosity to my brother and my sister. So the idea here is that all of holiness, all of our relationship with God, all of our worship of Hashem really comes down to not what I do for Him. It's what I do for others. Correct?
Because we really can't do anything for him.
We can't do anything. We can't contribute one thing to him. Right? We cannot do it. However, when I treat someone with the utmost of loving kindness and respect, I wouldn't want to say something to hurt another person. How many times have you just not said something when it kills you to want to say something? And you want to just let them have it, and you don't. Now let me ask you, is there appropriate time to say the truth even if it might hurt somebody? Yes. What would you think that situation would be?
When harm could come to them.
When harm can come to them. Very good point. How about if someone is completely wrong in their judgment towards you? Is it all right to defend yourself? It depends on what it is. But I'm talking about if someone has come out and harmed you, should you speak up for your defense? Yes, I think you should.
Not to be doormats.
Not to be doormats. Yeah. That's not humility, right? Let's talk about the equipping phase of this. While it makes sense that a person commit to spiritual life, be sensitive to others, use tactful speech, and even be prepared to bend the truth to a higher purpose, it is apparent that we have just entered into an ethical minefield. Once we abandon the position that we only tell the bare truth in every situation, we make ourselves dependent upon our own judgment. This is scary. And therein lies the danger. For surely our judgment is fallible. We are so easily misled and deceived, perhaps most of all, by our own penchant for self-deception. Now, what do I mean by that? You know, there are people who have perceptions of what they think is true and it not be true. And that's the danger. I would think it would be easier and better for us to default and say, I'm really not sure what this situation is. I really don't know. Now, here's an example. Something happens and immediately you assess it and you go, this is what they were doing. This is their motivation. In reality, do we know anybody's motivation? We don't. So we have to be careful on how we counter that with our perception of truth because we don't understand the motivation. It takes something very special in our character development to develop truth. Out of all the things that we're going to be talking about over these next few weeks, truth becomes one of those very precious, delicate things. Rabbi Eliyahu Dessler gives us hope in telling us that our human hearts come ready, equipped for the task. Here's the quote. Even after the desires of one's heart have persuaded him to accept the false way as true, he still knows in his heart of hearts that the true path is truer than the other one. Every human being thus has the faculty of determining in his own heart whether the real truth lies. The discerning heart. This is the ultimate instrument for knowing what is true and for guiding our speech and actions. We all have such a heart, though its voice may be quiet and even muffled or drowned out by another inner voice. We also may not be familiar with the language. Mussar tells us that one of the primary tasks on the spiritual journey is to cultivate and exercise that implement of skillful discernment of a wise heart. So how do we develop out truth? We develop out the discernment, the skill of discerning the situation. What is going to be the result of what I say? What are going to be my actions? What happens? And I think we need to separate out, for example, we cannot say, well, it's all right for me to lie because I want to protect my ego. You understand? Mm-hmm. It's not appropriate. Because I'm going to check my ego, that means that I'm willing to lie for falsehood. You understand? However, is it appropriate? Now, this is the twist. How about you don't tell the truth to protect someone else's ego?
Which doesn't make you a liar.
Doesn't make you a liar at all. No, it's like you're protecting, because you realize to say the truth can be very damaging to someone. So it's something to consider. Yes. Say that one more time.
Depends on how big an ego they have and how much damage the truth would do to it.
Right. Right. Yes.
We're also told that in that end there are certain matters that you're to go and seek out the truth.
Right.
And when it appears that there's evil going on in the town or something you want to get by, you go and find out the truth.
Right.
And then take action accordingly.
Right. Yes.
So you either find that they're innocent and the lies are being spread and put a stop to the lies, or else you take action on the whatever the
Right.
that was being done.
You know, I also think that the way truth is communicated is just as important as anything else. I mean, maybe it's not that you should lie, but it's how you tell the truth that could be much more gentle and palatable for the person that you're trying to tell. I mean, none of us want to not be told the truth in a situation, I think. I think that if you love truth, you want to be told the truth. You don't want someone to lie to you. You know, it's the whole, does these jeans make me look fat thing, right? Well, first of all, you shouldn't ask that question if you're looking in the mirror realizing you're fat.
Don't ask a question
don't-
you're not ready for the answer.
Right. That's a good point. Don't ask a question you're not prepared to get the answer to. But at the same time, yeah, sure, somebody's going to lie or just lie. But the point is if you're a person of truth, you don't mind somebody going, you know, you might want to wear something a little bit different. Don't get your feelings hurt just because you asked.
And I would be careful whom I ask. If it's a
Correct.
person I really trust, who I know has my best interests at heart, and if she
I agree.
tells me, yeah, you shouldn't be wearing those, then I know she's not seeing it to hurt me. She really wants what's best for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the whole key. Karen?
We used to be taught a long time ago that saying that be careful what you say, when you say it, when you wear and why.
That's good.
And the reason is because there's things that you need to talk about. I mean, I need to talk to somebody because I'm having an argument with my husband, help clarify, is he right, am I wrong, what's going on? And that's not, it's not wrong to talk about things, but the way that you talk about it is really, really important. And who you talk about it, what matters, and when, because it's sort of going to get back and people are going to get hurt. And if you do it in the wrong way. And so it's not that, because it's not really subjective truth but it's like, you know, my feelings get hurt because my husband and I are having an argument over something, and if I say something to the wrong person, it's going to get back to him that, well, I think he's stupid. But yet somebody can go, you know, his view of it is because X, Y, Z, and, you know, help me be able to see it in a better light.
Right.
So it really is being able to see you can't not talk about things because that creates bigger problems.
Right.
But you also have to be big enough to handle the truth.
See, that's the hard part right there, Karen, because, see, what happens is we all like to think we want to hear the truth, but sometimes we don't, and it's very painful.
That's something, because all the time I'll start to ask the question, I'll go, never mind, I don't want to know the answer.
Right.
My kids, and they'll look at me sometimes and go, do you really want to know?
Right, exactly.
As mom, a lot of times, like, my kids will bring me their artwork, and I'm like, it's beautiful. And they're like, no, what do you really think? And do you want a critique? Because if you want a critique,
Right.
it's still beautiful. And it's not that and when I tell them it's beautiful, but there's something wrong with it, the two can be true at the same
Correct.
time.
Absolutely.
You know, that they drew this beautiful picture. It's so much better than what they did last time.
Right.
So it's fantastic, but it's also, here's things that you can improve on. And, you know, so there's truth is, it's kind of like there's varying levels of truth.
Right. There are, and I would also say that that the best way to receive the truth for ourselves and what stands in the way of being able to receive truth is our ego. It really becomes a big problem when we don't want to get our feelings hurt. We don't want, we're very hypersensitive. And the only way to be able to receive truth is to be able to analyze what the person's saying and sort of suppress your emotions to it, right? You take your emotions out of it and say, well, is this, what this person just said to me, is that true or not? And if it's true, then in the argument or discussion, acknowledging that it's true. Like, you're right, you're 100% true. But that wasn't fun hearing. At the same time, when we speak the truth to someone, especially if you're in a truthful relationship, a marriage, for example, you've got to be careful how you speak truth. Just how it is. If it's a friend, a family, it doesn't matter. Your sister, I'm sure you and your sister had some spats in your life. You want to make sure that you say truth, but you've got to say it in a way that's full of compassion and respect and not out of trying to damage someone. Because to me, to speak truth for the sole intent, purpose to damage the other person or to hurt them, it's worse than a lie. It's worse than the worst lie, right? But at the same time, if it's spoken with compassion and care, and that person can't receive it and they get their feelings hurt, then the problem is actually on them. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. The problem is on them not being able to say, you know what, you're right. And I would hope that all of us in this room want to love the truth enough to where we want to hear the truth. But at the same time, I don't want somebody to be mean. I don't want somebody to be cruel and say, well, I told you the truth. Right? That's cruel. You just don't want to do that to someone. And at the same time, you don't want to be in a relationship in which when a person asks you something, you're going to flatter them and not tell them the truth. Because at some point, that's going to damage the relationship. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I had two thoughts.
Let me close out the class. Can someone turn off? You want to turn the camera off and back on? Huh? Yeah, so the live stream can continue. Because if not, the camera will close the live stream. No, the live stream. You turn the live stream off?
No, sure.
Okay.